Appreciate it. I had to hunt down. So the story of the two pictures, the one over here on the left in the black is from this season, and that's our quarterback this year. And the one on the right is from 2003. That's my first year as the offensive coordinator. And so the difference between the two, the one on the left obviously posted digitally everywhere else. The one on the right, I had to go hunt down in a photo album and scan it because it was the old. People don't even take pictures in to get them processed anymore. But that's where that one came from. So there's my contact info. I'll put it back at the beginning, guys. I'm going to start rolling. If you guys have questions, just get with Justin and he'll cut in and ask them. But we're going to get rolling on this thing. So just a little bit real quick about my journey. So again, that first picture, I became the offensive coordinator at Jinx. Jinx is kind of a national program. Their coach while I was there, Alan Trimble, was a legendary coach. He has passed away with ALS, but I was very fortunate, 29 years old, to become the OC. And then you can kind of see my path. I went to Union as a volunteer assistant tight ends coach, became the head coach at a small Christian school, Metro Christian, who's won state twice now. Became the offensive coordinator at a Division II school here in the state, University of Central Oklahoma. Came to BA the first time as an offensive coordinator, left, took a head coaching job at Coweta, a 5A school here in Oklahoma. And then I took a 6A Division II job in the Edmond area, Deer Creek as the head coach, and then back at BA. And then now currently, as you can see at the bottom, our head coach got released. And so I'm a free agent. So as we were talking on here earlier, I've had a few interviews up to this point and got a few more lined out this week and early next week. And so just trying to figure out what kind of the best situation is for me and my family. So if anybody knows anybody in this part of the world that's looking for a quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, share my contact info. So, but again, a lot of this is just kind of why I wanted to show this, not so much that anybody cares where I've been, but just these are some of the lessons that I've learned, over the past 20 years, basically as a coordinator. First thing is, again, we're going to kind of go through these, but master being a position coach first. When I first got my first job was at Shawnee, Oklahoma. I was a wide receiver coach, and man, I wanted to be an OC bad. That's all I concentrate on was, just plays and schemes and, just every clinic I went to was all about that. But, you're still probably going to be a position coach. And matter of fact, you probably got your offensive coordinator job because you were a great position coach. And so as you become the OC, sometimes your focus starts shifting on the other guys. And so I think, being that master of your position before you become the OC, allows you to focus that, but then you also have that background in your position group that you coach. And the big deal is don't let your position become the weak link. The worst thing you can do is come in on Saturday and Sunday and grade the film and your group be the worst group. And it's because you may be focused on scheme and all that stuff. And so, especially if you're not an OC yet, be the best position coach you can be. Everybody should have hopes and aspirations, but I'm just telling you, I look back now and I coach quarterbacks and it's like, gosh, I've got to be better in my individual drills. So that's one of the things that I have on my list this offseason is, I want to be a better position coach going into next year. If you're not an OC yet, try to get where you master multiple positions. I talked about, I spent a year at Union as a volunteer assistant. And the best thing that happened was they put me with tight ends, and I worked with tight ends and offensive line. And I'm by no means a great offensive line coach, but it gave me a great understanding of kind of what those guys go through, what their coaches go through, because sometimes, as a skilled guy, we get out there and we want to throw the ball around and all that stuff. But it's kind of a different world with those 5 or 6 guys down there putting their hand in the ground and coming off and mashing people every snap. So, I guess my thing there is, if you're not an OC yet, don't get in a big hurry, man, just learn all you can about your position because, once you become that OC, again, your position group, a little bit will take a little bit of a backseat of your focus because you're worried about scoring points and winning football games. Okay. So number 2, practice with a wet ball in fall camp. So like at Broken Arrow, one of the things that we did was we took a 5-gallon bucket like the one over there on your right, filled it with water, dumped the football in there, threw it to the center before every snap and inside, or the same thing in 7-on-7. And so what we wanted our players at some point in fall camp to snap, throw, catch, and handle a wet football before game night. All right. Now, to the left, you'll see there one of my head coaching jobs. We actually got the fire truck to come in and hook up. I'm going to show you a video. We actually ran a 10-minute segment of offensive practice underneath the fire hose. So I don't know. This is still legendary with some of the players that I talked to and stuff. But here you can see, I mean, they're doused. I mean, we had it down there. We're going no huddle. We're down inside the 10 running some red zone. And it was probably too much water. But, you know, it just got our kids kind of mentally over that challenge of, hey, that Friday night we played and it rained. Let me play this again. You can kind of see some of it. But when we played that Friday night, that rain was nothing like that fire hose shooting our guys. And so it got to be a big talk of the town. You know, the kids were wanting to know if we were going to do it every week. I'm like, guys, we just did it that one time. We run a couple of footballs in the process. But again, it got our guys over that barrier. So again, kind of to go back to that previous slide, the 5-gallon bucket is fine. You know, just especially your centers, quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, all those guys. The fire truck deal was kind of a cool idea, and it made the news. And like I said, kids still talk about all that kind of stuff. All right. Don't just add a play, get the details. All right. So it's easy to see a play at a clinic and want to add it or on Twitter or something like that. But I think the most important thing is to understand the details of the play. You know, the person that you got it from, what formations do they run out of and why? What looks is it not good against? So if you call into that look, how are you going to get out of that play? Or, you know, again, they can offer you a lot of insight. So my thinking is, like, if you see a great play at a clinic or you see somebody talk about one, man, get with that person outside of that clinic setting. Even if it's an email, a direct message, if they put their cell phone up there and you can shoot them a text, but ask questions. There are no stupid questions. So this play down here at the bottom is just simple shallow screen. I was a part of one of these Zoom clinics. There was a guy named Josh Herring, talked about shallow screen. I really liked it. I wanted to add it. So I said, hey, coach, man, when you get some free time, can me and you just hop on a one-on-one Zoom? And I really want to go over the ins and outs of this play. And so he talked about basically how, you know, he's ruled it up, kind of the things that he likes to do it out of. And I mean, we spent like 20, 25 minutes. And in our first rival game against Union on 3rd and long, you know, we call this play at the very first drive and it goes 80 for a touchdown. And, you know, and again, it was something that probably we could have put in off that clinic. But I think by having the better understanding of the thing and Josh spending some time with us, man, it really was a good play for us this year. And we really feel like we have a real deep understanding of the play. So get the details, just don't throw the play in. Listen to defensive guys talk football. And you guys know as well as I do, they love to talk football. All right. But you can learn so much as a young coach. Listen to those guys and, you know, how they, you know, roll up, how they attack route combos. You know, myself, I learned so much listening to those guys talk about run fits and who they're reading. Are they reading guards? Are they underkeying guards to tailback? Are they moving their front based on where the back, you know, where the back set? Are they setting their front by field boundary? Are they setting it by pressure or by where the strength is? And so, you know, and there's a ton of good ones. What their empty checks are. Anytime that there's an opponent that we're playing, that their guy is speaking at a clinic, I'm downloading it. Again, you know, I've got a list down there at the bottom. I love Bass's podcast. I love listening to it because there's some smart guys on there. And I always pick something up that I take note of that, you know, like last year, there was some blitz stuff that somebody talked about on there about where the back was set. And so we talked about starting our back in pistol and moving him pre-snap so they couldn't get a beat on that, just if we played somebody that had that sort of philosophy. And so I've got a whole list of guys down there at the bottom that you can find on Twitter, and they talk defense all the time. And like I said, you don't even have to interact with them. It's just they're really good guys to follow. And, man, when they get talking about football and get on a roll, you can always find something that you can incorporate in your offense just by learning from these guys. Hold on just a second here, Coach. I got to okay. Always have a bad weather plan. Okay, so by heart, I'm a spread guy. When I start getting nervous is when on Sunday I look at the weather app or I watch the news and I see wind or rain. Okay, and I think early, especially in our part of the country, you got to plan for heat too. I mean, your skilled guys, like how much running that they're going to do in the game on Friday night, how that's going to affect them. All right. but, especially the wind and the rain. So we've kind of talked about the wet football deal already a little bit, our plan for that. But, when it's windy in practice, spring ball, fall camp, just don't throw with the wind because it gives you an advantage, okay? As a young guy, throw into the wind, especially a strong wind, and kind of get a feel for your quarterback's arm, what plays work well into the wind. It may be that you can't throw any intermediate and deep balls. Maybe it's going to have to all be short passing game. Have a plan for the cold. We'll start talking as soon as Monday practice about, hey, what the weather's going to be. My rule's always been, hey, whatever you're going to play in, you need to practice in. So it could be 60 degrees all week, and then maybe Friday it's going to dip down to the 30s. Well, as well as I do what's going to happen. All those kids are going to run out to the sporting goods store and they're going to buy sleeves. Well, if they've never carried a football in sleeves, I mean, it's tricky sometimes, and we put the ball on the ground. And so start talking to your players early. Hey, if you're gonna wear it, quarterbacks with gloves, I'll see guys come out because I see the NFL guys do it. I'm like, you've never practiced in a glove all week. So that's kind of been our steadfast rule. And then if you're a spread guy, you might have to make some adjustments. We haven't played on grass in a hot minute, but if it's going to rain, I mean, you might have to have a kind of a mud offense. I mean, you might have to make some adjustments. I know at Coweta, we were throwing the ball around a bunch. We were averaging over 300 yards passing a game, and we got into a week where we knew it was going to rain, and we threw the ball 3 times, and so all that week, I mean, we kind of had to make some adjustments to our offense, find some extra tackles to put in at tight end and run our quarterback some. And so always have an idea of what the weather's going to be. Don't be surprised Thursday night or Friday game day that all of a sudden it's bad weather and you don't have a plan in place. Practice situational football early and often, okay? And so this is third downs, goal line short yards. Again, I'm not going to read through that list, okay? But start practicing that stuff in a competitive environment as fast as you can, okay? Get your guys used to that play. The one thing that I feel like that we've done a pretty good job of, especially over the last, 7 to 8 years, has been situational football, like third downs. We always want to win third downs. I mean, we feel like if we can get to third medium, that typically we're going to convert at a pretty high rate. All right. Same thing in the red zone. We have a dedicated 7-on-7 and team session to the red zone every week. We try to start working 2-minute offense early against our defense. End of game plays. So this diagram right here is just a simple, okay, there's 11 seconds left. You don't have any timeouts. You're trying to get either into field goal range or you're trying to get into range where you can throw Hail Mary. So we're trying to throw the ball to the sidelines to one of these 3 guys over here and get out of bounds to set up the last play, whether it be a Hail Mary or field goal. So one of the things that we did is we took our end of game plays. We typically have 3 of them. We have a kind of a Boise State play where we throw it to the dig and he tosses it back underneath and it becomes a lateral fest. We have a Hail Mary and we have a get out of bounds play. We will take and we laminate those and we take those out to the games on Friday nights. And so one of the things that we're going to do is if we get in a spot where we're in 2-minute offense and we know we're going to have a drive to go win the football game, we'll review these plays because, again, your end-of-game plays may not be something that you hit every single week. You might hit, one of them this week and one of them the next after you've initially installed them. So we will take those things out there, laminate it, and review those things just so that if we get in a spot where we need it, we've got it. And heaven forbid if it's a timeout, we can bring them over and coach them right up off the lamination. But to have those things drawn up out there, you see a lot of times the special teams guys, the NFL hold that stuff up. We'll do it with our end of game plays. But again, I laugh about this. One year, I mean, you think of something as easy as taking a knee at the end of the game for victory. But we had our 2s into a game and the other team called timeout. They were out of timeouts. And so we had 1 play left. We told our kids to go out there and take a knee. Well, our quarterback takes a snap and he takes a knee, but also our left guard because he had never practiced victory. So we had a quarterback and a left guard taking a knee. And so that was on us as coaches because we'd never practiced it. Plan for ghosts. So the one thing about high school defense is they're way more likely to completely change week to week than what college guys do. So you spend all this time game planning for what you see on film, but I always try to practice something else that we anticipate they might do, all right? And so our O-line coach, Harper, he was the best at this. Our offensive line coach at Broken Arrow, I mean, he had our O-line guys prepared for everything. If we were playing a 4-man front, he always found a way to work in a little bit of a bear front or a 3-man front, just so they would feel comfortable if they saw it on Friday night. Right now is a great time to plan those things. And so I think I stole this from like Gus or somebody like that. But, on our play sheets in the past, we've had an answer sheet. So you can see over here on the right, we had, 4 blitz beaters. If we played a 4-4 team, we had 5 plays that we liked versus it, 4-3, just any of the defenses. And those were set and they never changed off our game plan sheet. And so what would happen is if we got into a game and let's say they were a 3-3 stack team, in the very first snap, they come out and bear. Well, all of a sudden now I can just flip to my answer sheet and I can get us in and out of plays that our guys really, they know. We practice this probably in fall camp against. We can get through that series and then we can come over and start making adjustments to our game plan. So again, if especially if you're a multiple team or, if you're a team that's really good and, maybe you're playing a lesser team, they're liable to come out in something completely different. So kind of having that plan and planning it right now is really good because you've got time as opposed to all of a sudden it's the first drive of the game and they've completely changed and your game plan's out the window and now you're having to do everything between series. So kind of having that plan in place was helpful for us, especially earlier in my career. All right. If you're having a position battle, chart everything. Okay. So this is a year that we were going to have a wide open quarterback competition. So every day I did this chart. I charted what we did in 7-on-7, what we did in team, if we scrimmaged that day, and then totaled it all up at the bottom. So this is after basically a 10-day spring ball kind of composite of what they did. Every day I go in there, I would talk to them about this chart. I wouldn't give it to them, but I would put it up on the screen just like I'm showing you guys. And I'd go over, I'd say, hey, you were in 7-on-7, you were 73%. That's really good, but the team that fell off to 50. And we talked about interceptions, and I even would count drops in there because a lot of times that maybe wasn't necessarily on the quarterback. But we did this when I was at University of Central Oklahoma with every position. We did it with wide receivers, we did it with running backs, and again, that kind of helps you justify to the head coach, hey, here's why I think this guy should be starting. And when you have this data, it kind of, basically helps the other people see that decision. I've had to break it out with parents. I've even had to show it to ADs before. And, everybody wants to be involved, especially that starting quarterback job. And so, man, when you've got this in your back pocket, it's kind of hard to argue sometimes with those stats. Script everything. Have a plan, work the plan. So whatever your game plan is, man, work those plays into your practice. Don't, and I get like no huddle guys. A lot of times, man, you want to in team, you want to go out there, you want to call it just like you would in a game. And that's great. For us, I love having the play versus the defense that I want, and everybody having that so everybody can coach. I want my assistants to kind of plan their individual time, especially early when you're a young coordinator. You want to make sure you know what those guys are doing. As you guys work together, with some of the guys that I've had at Broken Arrow, they were veteran coaches. I didn't necessarily need to know exactly what they were going to do, individual every 5-minute block. But when we were first together, it was nice to know that, okay, the wide receiver coach, he's still working stock block and he's working releases and that kind of thing. The third bullet there, put your coaching points on your script, has been big for me just because it allows your assistants now to basically coach your guys with essentially the same thought process that you're having. So you can see over here on the right side, the notes section. That's where I want my coaches to see the play and then see the notes. And so that way, man, they can start talking, especially if we put something new in. A lot of times I'll put over there, hey, for whatever reason this week, yell was going to equal mesh with an inside shout outside. So, or mesh inside with shout outside. So it's like, we called yell. Maybe it was a new play. My wide receiver could say, hey guys, yell is just mesh inside, shout outside. Now the receivers got it and they went. So it really kind of empowered our coaches. So that's good. And then, I'll talk here in a second about Google Drive, but whatever you use to put it in the cloud, put it in there early so your coaches can review it before practice. I know it's getting harder and harder to find everybody, where they can have time to meet before practice. And so a lot of times you're getting over there right when the players are getting there. and you're rushing out to practice. So I try to get everything in there as early as I can. I just ask the coaches, hey, check the Google Drive, man. Look at the scripts. I make mistakes all the time in there, and coaches find it and they go, hey, coach, I think you got this on the wrong hash, or this is out of the wrong formation. I'm like, yep, you're right. I'll go in and change it real fast. So, essentially, if everybody's checking that, you can almost kind of have a staff meeting before practice without actually having an in-person staff meeting. Always have a way to get your dude the ball. So this guy over here on the right was about 5'6", and in 2013, he was our guy, okay? But he was a wide receiver. So, as you guys know, especially with wide receivers, I mean, sometimes it doesn't take much for them to double or for them to, basically take that guy away. So the worst feeling in the world is to lose a game and realize you didn't get your best guy the ball. So have surefire ways to get that guy the ball. Jet sweeps, wildcat screens, trick plays, motions, and shifts. We've had games where our best wide receiver could not beat their best corner. And if that guy traveled with our best wide receiver, he could take him out of the game. So we had a shift built in where we could put our wide receiver in the backfield. So that corner would have to declare a side, and then we would shift our wide receiver away from that best corner to get him on their second best corner and maybe give us a chance to win. I think the same thing can be said with running backs. I know those guys can get a lot of touches because you can just turn around and hand them the football. But what if you're not as good as the D-line up front? He's just getting killed. I mean, you got to have ways to get that guy out in space. So, again, I think, I've always tried to say this is if I'm going to get beat, I'm not going to get beat because I didn't get my dudes the ball. So always have a plan get those guys the ball and don't apologize about it, especially in the games that you need to win. I mean, if a guy has, I think this kid in one of our playoff games had about 14, 15 touches at wide receiver. Well, I mean, it was what it was. We need to win that game. And Saturday, I mean, I'm not going to go in there and look and say, well, gosh, he only touched the ball 4 times and got beat. If it takes 15 touches to win, I'm going to get him 15 touches. Understand complementary football. And this is something I had to learn basically when I got to be a head coach. It's a team game. So scoring points is not the ultimate goal. Winning is. So you kind of have to understand when your defense, 1, isn't very good. 2, they might be tired. 3, hey, the other team's giving them something different and they need a chance to make adjustments. You need to understand when they're playing well or maybe when they're outmatched. And so, your play calling can sometimes affect the game based on which one of those your defense is. Hey, if your defense is playing well, you can be a lot more aggressive. You can go out there and, man, you can be bombs over Baghdad. Here we go. Because I know if I punt, the defense can go out there, they're going to stone them or we're going to get the ball back. Or it might be that the defense is just on the field for, 20 plays. Man, I can't go 3 and out. So I might have to throw some fast screens and manufacture a kind of a little bit more of a methodical drive than what I'm used to, just to give those guys a rest. So, I think complementary football is something, and I think that's where on the weekend staff meetings, sit down with the defensive coordinator and kind of figure out kind of a team game plan will a lot of times help. Be efficient on the weekends. So nothing worse than just sitting around, everybody staring at each other. So have a plan, put it on paper, and stick to the plan. I think, I want to try to give everyone specific jobs that kind of correlate with what they coach. Try to make your staff a part of the game plan process. If it's just them inputting data and you're coming up with all the cool plays and all that, they're going to get real tired real fast and not want to come in there. I'm a big believer. I've worked 7 days a week, pretty much the whole season for the last 4 years. But there are times that maybe you don't need to be in the office to get something done. Maybe it's your son's got a football game Saturday out of town and hey, you need to go watch that football game. So I think, hey, if you don't need to be at the office to get things done, then don't, but find a way to get it done is what I've always said. So a couple of things there. So you kind of see down there in the bottom right, the quarterback related keys. So I want to give something like that to all of my coaches kind of to fill out as they're watching the film. So, when we come in and meet on Sunday, we'll go through the questions. So the O-line coach might have a different set of questions. His might be, are they a field pressure or boundary pressure team? Do they set their 3 to the back or do they set their 3 to the strength of the formation? Some of those types of questions. And so I think in doing that, it gives your staff a little bit of ownership Again, it's something that you can put online and kind of create a workbook for the week so that everybody can go in and fill it out and see it. One of the things that I did somewhere along the way that I really like, so, you're sitting there and the big part of the weekend is getting the data in. Well, as a coordinator, you're trying to get the data in as well, look at specific things. And, if the O-line guy, man, there's some kind of front that just doesn't look right. He doesn't know what you want to call it. He stops you from what you're doing to ask what you want to call it. Well, if you do that 3 or 4 times, now you're not being very efficient. So one of the things that we did was if you didn't know what the blitz was, you didn't know what the front was, whatever, instead of, hey, let's stop in this whole process, just put in 999, okay? That we didn't have a front coverage blitz or anything that was labeled 999. So then I knew I could go back and mine the data that our coaches inputted in. And if I looked through the coverages and I saw a 999, then I knew that the wide receiver coach maybe didn't know what the coverage was or what I wanted to call it. And then I could do that after we got out of the office. And so it just made things run a little bit more efficient. Then I wasn't having to go back and change a bunch of stuff. If they weren't sure, they just put that in, and I was able to go back in later and name it whatever I wanted to name it. Break down other offenses in the offseason. Again, I got this from Josh Henson. He was at Missouri as the offensive coordinator and absolutely loved it. So all of us watch game film, but they would actually take offenses they want to study, put them in their Exo system, or for our case, Huddle. And so, I've got down there at the bottom, BYU, Alabama, and the Los Angeles Rams. I've already broke down BYU and Alabama. I'm just waiting for Huddle access to get the Rams one started. But, I go in, I try to make cut-ups. I save them. Obviously now with the Huddle storage issues, I save them to a Google Drive. I delete them, and then I repeat it with the next team. And so I really like to focus on these cut-ups. So like runs, RPOs, quick game, drop back screens, play action, third down, red zone, goal line, short yardage. And every now and then I'll label some trick plays. But, it's really, it's really good because now all of a sudden if I'm looking at Alabama's counter play, well now, instead of watching just game film, after I break it down, I can go in there, and if they have 78 counters, I can see what they like, how they block it versus a 3-man front, a 4-man front, how blitz affects them. Same thing with RPOs and dropbacks. So, it's been one of the things that's kind of been a game changer for me, especially like when I talked about at the beginning, like just not adding a play, but getting the specifics. If you watch their stuff over and over and over enough, because you've got it broken down and it's all in one place, man, you can really kind of get to see, okay, this is what gives its problems, and this is what maybe they don't call it versus that front, So again, it's been really good. I said Huddle, but I know there's a lot of other people on the market. So whatever you use, man, find some offenses that you want to study, put them in there, and make some cut-ups and study them in the off season. Have specific questions in the off season. So one of the things I try to do is I want to basically sit down. I do this in a Google Doc, but it's like I write down as soon as the season's over a list of everything that I want to research. All right. It could be new schemes, problems from last year, whatever. But I just put it in a Google Doc that the whole staff can see, because I want them to help me with this process, and they can add to that as well. And so we try to find people to talk to, whether it be clinics, Zoom clinics, Twitter, whatever. And we try to ask these specific questions. So we're not going to ask them, hey, what's your favorite pass play? We're going to say, hey, how do you attack cover 3, or how do you attack palms coverage? If it's pass pro, it's not, hey, are you a bobslide team? Or it's like, hey, how do you handle teams that back blitz? And so we try to get real specific. Down there at the bottom is questions that I made for a conversation I had with a coordinator. So it's like, hey, I want to know all about your pistol footwork on inside zone, outside zone, power and counter. What are some of the RPOs you have? Anyway, so we try to get really specific. And I think that helps when you visit with guys, because if you get that question, hey, what's your favorite pass play? It's like, well, crap, out of what formation versus what coverage, all of that stuff. But, man, if you hit them with some specifics, it really makes them engage, and it can make, a Zoom session 2 hours really meaningful for both of you, because they love talking football and you're getting your specific questions answered. This is a big one for us. Know who you have to beat and keep that in mind when you're installing your offense. So like right now, okay, except for me because I don't have a job, but right now everybody else that have jobs, you kind of know the games on your schedule that you have to win, either to make the playoffs, to get home field advantage, to win a state championship, or maybe to keep your job. So start game planning for those guys right now. I mean, put those guys in huddle and start generically breaking down. And then look at your install and see if a play is going to be good against them. If, like for us, we might have 4 opponents in the past that we really broke down hard this time of the year. Well, if Coach Harper came to me and said, hey, inside zone's not going to be very good versus 3 of the 4, well, is inside good worth having in then if we can't even run it against the teams that we need to beat? And so I think those are some things that you can really ask yourself, because, again, we all see cool plays that we like. Man, there's a lot of cool things out there that we can run against bad teams that, man, it's great to have on film. But if it doesn't help you win the games that you need to win, is it worth having it in, or could you focus that time somewhere else? And I think this is something, again, that you divide and conquer, man. Make it a staff exercise. I always try to assign these teams to some of our assistants. So, hey, maybe the wide receiver coach had Tulsa Union and the O-line coach had Jinx and the running back guy had Owasso. And it's like, man, one, you're going to be the master of their defense, but also, man, who are they talking to? I never will forget, one of our arch enemies, went and visited OU defensively, and I found out about it. So it's like, okay, man, they're getting ready to be odd defense. So instead of us practicing for the 4-2-5 that they'd been in the past, kind of in the spring and the summer, we knew that at some point they were going to show up in odd. And sure enough, first game of the year, they show up in odd. Well, we kind of had a beat on it just because we'd done some reconnaissance mission on them. All right. Know your identity. I heard this at a clinic, and it never sounded more true. I was a young guy, and the guy asked a coach, if I ask you right now what you're known for offensively, what do you hang your hat on? What is it? Because I think everybody has to have an identity. You can't just be good at everything. It just can't be everything. So, and again, it could change year to year. And I think your staff and your team need to have a clear vision of what your offense is going to look like and how your identity is going to help you win football games. In 2014, I was at Coweta, and we were going to play as fast as anybody in the state. We were going to line up, and we were going to try to see how many snaps we could get. And without a doubt, we were going to lead 5 a.m. passing offense. I was the head coach. I was the offense coordinator. We had a good quarterback. We had some good skilled kids. We were going to throw the crap out of the football. I mean, we were going to throw it 40, 50 times a game and go fast. And I felt like that gave us our best chance to win state that year. And our kids believed in it, and that's just what we were. I came to Broken Arrow. We were going to be the most physical high school football team in the state offensively. We were going to pound people. All right. We were going to find a way to run the football. It didn't make a difference how many tight ends or fullbacks we had to put in the game. We were going to put you in a phone booth, and we were going to pound you. And even if you beat us, you were going to feel it the next day. Now, 2021, I have no idea what I'm going to be. But again, I think you need to have that vision for what you're going to do and sell that to your staff and your kids and stick with that vision. And again, it could change year to year. But again, if somebody asked you right now, hey, what are you guys? You need to say, hey, here's what we are the best at. We're going to be the best screen team in the state of Oklahoma. Hey, we're going to be the most physical team. We're going to throw the ball around. We're going to be an empty more snaps than anybody. Whatever that is, but develop an identity and sell your staff and kids on it right now. All right, utilize technology. And again, I'm getting older. I try to stay up on it. I'm kind of a techie, all right? But explore what others are doing. So one of the things that I've kind of lucked upon, I was down at OSU, and I was kind of looking through their XO stuff, and I noticed they had all these columns with their positions labeled on top of it, and they had numbers and codes. And so I asked Casey Dunn, I said, what is this? He goes, we grade our kids within, huddle or XO. So every position had a column, and I thought that's a great idea. So Coach Harper took it further, and he started doing it every practice. His O-line, he would make comments in huddle. So practice was over, the kids went home. He sat there and he banged out inside run, and he made comments on every kid. And he made those kids watch it in huddle that night. That way the next day, they had already watched practice, saw his comments. If they had questions, they could ask him. But then he could watch opponent film, and it freed them, it freed him up from coaching on their mistakes from practice because they already watched it in the huddle. Sideline replay, we use Sky Coach. It's phenomenal. TVs on the sidelines. We've been known to take the iPads and stuff into the locker room at halftime. In 2018, our state championship game, we got a rain delay. We rolled our TVs in there, and we watched basically the entire game during that rain delay to get ready for the fourth quarter of that football game. So how are people using those? Different ways. Playbook software. And my big question with playbook software always is, what's the best way that we find kids are going to use it? So like, we don't do printed playbooks anymore, but we will take and put PowerPoint slides in our huddle presentations for our installs, because our kids have their phones out anyway. If you give them a paper playbook, they're probably going to leave it at home, leave it in their locker, leave it in their backpack. If you put it where they can view it on their Chromebook or their phone, they always have those things in their hands. So it's nothing for them they would rather do that in class. And don't tell people I said that, but they'd rather be looking at their install in class on Monday for that week's opponent than they would be, maybe the science class or whatever it is. Drones are cool. We utilize the heck out of, like I said, we're a Google school. So, man, we use the heck out of Google Drive. I mean, we put everything in there, which I'll show you here in just a second. And then other ideas. Zoom obviously has been a game changer. We've used it to screen record all of our meetings. So like last year when we were quarantined, every time we had an install meeting, I would record it. That way, if we had a kid that couldn't be there, or even it was good for like our junior high coaches and junior high kids, man, we posted that stuff in our Google Drive, shared it with them. And so that kind of keeps them on the same page of, hey, keeping that vertical alignment between the 8th, 9th, and the high school, and share with those young quarterbacks. Even if they're not running the same stuff as us, they're getting to hear your verbiage and that kind of thing. So now one of the coolest things that the two cool things I'll give you technology wise. And again, this is just for Jay Wilkinson. I bought an iPad Pro. Absolutely love it because I can keep it in my lap. I can carry it with me. I use the heck out of it. I love how you can annotate on top of plays. So if I'm watching a football game, I can pull that thing out. I can draw a play up. I can do a screen capture, and boom, I can send it to my entire coaching staff. I can screen record. So if I'm watching some video, I can screen record a play. Again, throw it in the message app. It comes right to their phones. It's been a game changer for me. The other thing that we did that has kind of taken the place of our drone, that's a cheaper option, we bought a Mr. Long Arm there. It's basically a painter stick. It goes about 20 feet in the air. Had a GoPro with a bicycle mount attached at the top. And now we have end zone footage wherever we go in practice. So like Coach Harper loved it. He had a girl that filmed almost every one of his drills throughout camp, and you can upload it right into Huddle. So if we did one-on-one pass rush, if we did, pods, anything like that, when we did team, boom, we had two angles, and it cost us less than $300 to buy a brand new GoPro and this Mr. Long Arm. Use the iPad to capture it, and boom, it was inputted into Huddle right after practice. And so it was a game changer. And we got it from the guys at Bigsby. Bigsby had one. They showed us how to do it, and it was awesome. And then you can see down at the bottom, it's kind of hard, but we put everything in Google Drive. So you can see 17, 18, 19, 20. We'd even had a 21 folder started about 5 days that we were talking about what we're getting off season before we all got fired. But everything that I get, I put in there and share with the staff, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Big one for you young guys, and this is something I even do now myself. Don't be afraid to ask for help, okay? You need to start having a network right now of guys that you go to for answers, all right? And they got to be guys that are going to shoot you straight. So, there you can see I've got a group on an app that called The Crew that, man, they're awesome to bounce ideas off of. I freaking love throwing a question out there, and there's about 20 to 30 of them, and man, it's awesome some of the ideas I get. Andrew Coverdale's been a great help. He's the master at PowerPoints and stuff like that. Dub Maddox is at a rival school. He's been at rival schools, but it's been awesome to kind of gang up on some of these defensive coordinators that we have to play against and share ideas. We don't get real specific about things at times, but man, it's just great talking about, what the other team's defense is doing that we might play. And you can see some of the rest of the guys there that I've leaned on, and a lot of those names you guys will see. But again, don't know something, ask. So like, for us, the take a knee chart changed when the play clock changed a few years ago. And so, man, we went to NCAA rules. So I was emailing and texting all my NCAA guys, hey, what do you use for take a knee chart at the end of the game? And because I had no idea, I'm not smart enough to sit there on the board and figure it all out. So I got about 3 or 4 of them, kind of compared them, came up with something we liked. And so, again, like we've gone and played in Texas, NCAA rules. So I've had to ask those guys, hey, what are the rules for shifting or motioning or whatever that I feel like might be something a little different. But don't be scared to ask those guys for help. And the bigger your network, I think the more options that you're going to have. Don't just ask one guy. Get 3 or 4 opinions and then choose whichever is going to be the best one for you. 1% better every day. I heard Coach Rule talk about this last year at AFCA. I try to get better every single day as a football coach. Like I was talking to Justin before this, what he's done has been fabulous. I can sit down at 11:30 at night after finally my kids go to bed. Maybe if they can get to bed by 11:30, sometimes midnight. Man, I can open my iPad up and I can listen to a podcast. I can watch one of the thousands of clinics that he's had done, and I can always get a little better. Twitter's been awesome. There's Facebook groups. I love having one-on-one Zooms with people. I love coming up with questions and saying, hey, can I borrow you for 30 minutes? The football tool chest, if you don't know about that on Google Drive, you better ask somebody, because I'm just telling you, you can get lost in that thing for 2 or 3 days. I've got to get a shout out to Brady and Coach Harper, the Run the Power guys, the podcast. Like I said, Coach Harper was our O-line coach the last 4 years. He's a stud. I've known Brady for quite a few years. And man, just everybody thinks, hey, it's Run the Power. They're talking about 21 personnel. There was a guy on there the other day talking about throwing around all the time. There's a guy on there talking about empty. So anything like that, man, just get a little bit better football wise. I just try to do it every day, and then try to share that with somebody. Man, if you see something good, screenshot that and send it to somebody, especially on your staff, make them a little better. Again, I kind of talked about the great thing about having the iPad. Man, I see something cool, boom, I screenshot it. I can message my whole staff and be right back at it. And the big thing is, my deal is, again, I've been doing this a long time, but I don't have all the answers. I never have had all the answers. But, man, that doesn't stop me from trying to find them. And I'll never find all of them, but, man, I'm going to keep searching. And so at the end of the day, I want people to, hey, I'm not the hardest working football guy, because I think there's some guys out there that really work their tails off at this game and make it a lot better. But, man, I try to be up there. I don't ever want to I'm not the hardest working guy, but, man, I don't ever want to sit at the house on Saturday and think I got beat because I got outworked. So I'm always trying to get a little bit better every day. This is mainly talking with your kids, and sometimes it can be with coaches too, but don't always correct. Sometimes it's better to ask why. All right. Especially like for me dealing with quarterbacks is, if a sophomore kid, man, he throws like it's a smash read and the corner's cloud and he throws it right to the receiver. Instead of saying, hey, man, it's cover 2, you got to throw that corner out in there. Sometimes it's easier, hey, man, why'd you throw that? And see what they say, because sometimes maybe you didn't do a very good job in the meeting explaining to him what a cloud corner looked like. And so by you saying, hey, that's a cloud corner, he may not know what a cloud corner is. And if you just quickly correct him right there, you don't know that. So then the next day, guess what? You call smash this cloud corner, he might throw it right to that guy again. So a lot of times ask why, man. You want those guys to be able to communicate what they're seeing with you. And I think this goes for every position. You don't want robots, man. You want to be able to think on the fly, because on Friday night, you're not going to be out there with them. And so I think a lot of times, man, you've got to really slow down and say, hey, why did you do that? And then really listen to what they say, because sometimes, it might be that you didn't do your job well enough. It wasn't that he was confused. Maybe he just didn't understand exactly what you taught for that day. Man, coach something every snap. I saw a Twitter deal of Coach O earlier, and this was like the thing he led off with this. But, man, I want my guys coaching. Don't sit back with your hands in your pocket. Boy, just get out there. Man, be specific. What your kids need to understand is you want to have the perfect football play, okay? Now, I've never hardly seen a perfect football play. There's always something somewhere that could be a little better. The backside wide receiver might have been able to get a little bit better, but that is the goal, all right? And so you need to let your kids know that, hey, listen, our coaches, we're going to coach you hard because we want you to be perfect, and it's hard to be perfect. Coach Wilkinson is not going to call the perfect game on Friday night. I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to have to get better. But don't think that, hey, we're always on your butt. We're always just negative. What we're trying to do is, man, we're trying to make you the best football player that you can be. That can also be to give encouragement. Man, if my quarterback throws a post in there and man, it's for his sake, it's perfect, man, I'm going to slap him on the butt and say, man, that's awesome. Man, you hit that third step, you let it go. I'm going to give encouragement, but I'm also coaching. I think the big thing when you're doing that, though, man, you got to coach in simple phrases. You don't want to slow practice down. So like for us, we were an A-gap power football team. So if you came to a broken arrow practice in the past 3 years, you will have heard me say, we hand off power, whether we did it right or not. I yell at the running backs, track the inside hip of the guard. And it just got to where it was inside hip. And it got to be the running joke where every time we called power, somebody on our staff was yelling inside hip. I bet I'd said it thousands of times in 4 years. But it was just known. And so we had those little catchphrases. If you heard me talk to the quarterbacks, if we throw an intermediate route, it was drive the football. Drove coaches crazy. But it was like, man, I wanted those guys to understand we've got to drive that football in there on an intermediate route so DBs can't break on the football. But again, coach something every snap and encourage your coach to do the same thing. All right, work with your DC to create your fall and spring install. Okay, the worst thing you can do is have wasted reps. Especially if you're at a smaller school and maybe it's your ones and it's the best of the rest over there on defense. Man, have some coverages that your formation's got to match your coverages. If you come out empty day one and DC hasn't covered empty, you know what's going to happen? It's going to be a busted play, or it's just going to be a wasted rep because they're not going to be the right coverage, or the DC's going to have to call timeout and he's going to have to lay out the entire coverage for everybody, and then you're going to get mad because it's taking too long. Okay, or you come out and maybe, the run play that you have installed that day is ISO. Well, they're in bare front. Well, crap, it's a wasted day because you're not going to run ISO into bare front very often, and that's the front they have working on. So try to figure out ways to do that, especially when you're working situational football. If they're going to work 2-minute defense and they're going to put in their sideline coverages, man, we want to work 2-minute offense. Again, we want to compete, but we don't have to beat our defense next fall. So we always try to keep that in mind. Man, we want to win because we want to have competitive kids and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, we're trying to make both sides of it better. We're not, again, nobody knows. I don't ever remember if I won a spring game or not. I'm sure Coach Gaylor, Coach Gower, Coach Dunn, and Coach Cade and those guys remember those back in the days. But I don't remember spring games, who won and who lost. I'm sure they'll tell you they won every one. But again, we want to compete, but I don't ever have to play against my defensive coordinator. All right. And this is a huge one, guys. I can't tell you how big this one is. Study defensive trends, game plan for them in the offseason. All right. So these are just some of the trends over the past 20 years. I never will forget my first year at Jinx. I'm the offensive coordinator. Todd Graham comes to TU, and Todd Graham is a 3-3 stack team. Nobody hardly was running 3-3 stack in Oklahoma at the time. Well, he comes in, and about half our schedule that next year was a 3-3 stack team. Well, the greatest thing about that is our defensive guys had Todd Graham come out and clinic them. Well, I sat in there and I listened to all of it. And so we game plan ways to attack a 3-3 stack because we knew we were going to be seeing it. And so there's all the things. The Iowa State 3 safety deal is awesome now, the mint front. And so what's next? And again, I have that list of those defensive guys. Watch their Twitter. Man, they put all the latest and greatest blitzes and sim pressures and coverages and all that stuff on there. And then again, who locally is the guy? Like for us, we need to always keep in mind what TU's doing, what OSU's doing, what OU's doing. Just because that's where guys are going to gravitate to in spring football and learn from those defensive coordinators. And so we need to know what they're doing. And so we can kind of game plan that now. And that way we're not surprised in fall camp. And again, that goes back to having your network of guys. Man, that was one of my deals last year. I reached out to everybody. I said, hey, what are you doing against the 3 safety stuff? Because I'd heard Adam Gaylor at Jinx talk about it. I knew other people were looking into it. I wanted to make sure that we had a plan for it before fall season got here. All right. Talk to Justin about this one. What you have to understand is when you first become an OC, or even if you've been doing it 20 years like I have, you're going to make mistakes. Trust me, you're going to mess up, and it's going to happen more than once. The biggest thing is own it. Don't make excuses. Learn from it. I never will forget the first time in a 2-minute situation, I was not prepared. We were playing somebody. I froze up on the headsets. Our head coach, man, he just took charge. He called 2 plays. We scored a touchdown. Nothing was said. I was like, hey, coach, that's my bad. He's like, hey, it's all right. We scored a touchdown. Man, I learned from it. There have been times where end-of-game situations, we've messed it up. Maybe we've given the ball back to the team with a little bit of time left, something like that. So I always try to write those situations down and research them in the offseason. Again, back to the network of people. I tell them the exact situation. Hey, the other team has 2 timeouts, 2 minutes and 35 seconds left. Kind of what are you thinking? How aggressive are you being? But the main thing is when you make mistakes is don't let it happen again. or try not to. You should never make the same mistake twice, especially if it's a major one that costs you the game. A big one is, you got to have that experience. That's why you're going to make mistakes. You got to have that experience of, man, if you make that mistake, it sticks in the back of your mind. If you're not a coordinator right now, try to get play calling experience somewhere, somehow, even if it's JV, 9th grade, something like that. I remember the first time I called JV offense, everybody made fun of me because, man, I had a call sheet that looked like I was getting ready to call plays in the Super Bowl. And, I had older coaches, and they're like, golly, we only run about 4 plays. What do you got? But, man, it was like I was amped up. And a lot of what I did, back then, almost 24 years ago, is some of the similar thought processes I still have on the call sheet just by trial and error. And so you current OCs, remember this with your staff. So, like, I'm big on, generally when I get somewhere new, I like to call the JV offense just because a lot of times early that's your backup quarterback. But I've learned over the years that, you've got guys on your staff that are aspiring to be OCs. And so you've got to give them the ability to call it. And, man, I like to kind of spread it around a little bit. We've been here, played 2 JV games on the same night. So one guy will call one game and one guy will call the other. And I try not to be in their ear, man. I sit back and I just encourage them. I talk to them between series, but, man, I let them call it because sometimes you have to mess up a few times before you get it right. And, the last thing I want to do is have them looking over their shoulder, worrying about me. And so, man, they mess up. We talk about why they messed up. And it's been great experience for some of those guys. And so, again, you're going to mess up, own it, learn from it. Don't let it happen again. All right. And then here's the last one. I got a funny story on this, but bottom line is win. So it doesn't matter how much you know, how big your playbook is, or how big your call sheet is. And when you're a young guy, they're going to be big because, man, you want to show everybody how smart you are. But at the end of the day, you're going to be judged by whether you win or lose. All right. And when you lose, hey, don't make excuses. Throw the defense under the bus, a kid under the bus, or something like that. Find ways to get better. So one of my buds is Todd Monken, and I love this deal. Is stats are really for losers. So it's funny because it's like that's what you tend to do, man. You get beat, and the first thing you want to say is, well, golly, we threw for 325 yards and scored 42 points. Well, guess what? They scored 43, so you should have found a way to score 44. And always try to, that's my deal, is that 1% deal. We're always going to try to get better. All right, so I'm going to wrap up here. If anybody's got any questions, but I got to show this. And so there's my contact information. So I talked about, let me go back to the previous slide. So I talk here about how big your call sheet is, okay? So when Justin put this out on Twitter, everybody saw my call sheet over there. And so all my buddies were going, golly, look at the size of that call sheet. It's about as big as you. All right, and so you can see there my first call sheet, my second call sheet. Well, my first call sheet was because I was a young guy, and I thought that made me look cool. And, man, I wanted to have all these colors and stuff like that because that's what I'd seen the guys in the NFL do and all that stuff. The one on the left now, guys, is because I'm old and I can't see, and so I have to blow the font up. So the only way I can get the stuff to fit on there is to use a stinking big call sheet. So for all those guys making fun of me, the haters out there that want to hate, I just went today to order me a pair of glasses. So next year, hopefully, if I land a job, I'll have a little bit smaller call sheet so I'll be able to see again. So hopefully you guys got something out of this. Like I told Justin, I know a lot of you guys probably are sitting there rolling your eyes because it's stuff that you've done before. But in my experience with these things, man, if I gave you 1 or 2 things that it helps you out, man, that was awesome. I did my job. So always feel free to reach out to me. Man, if you guys want to talk install or anything like that, shoot me an email or DM me. I'm pretty good about following guys back. If you'll follow me on Twitter, so you can shoot me a DM. And Justin, I'm just going to hold you responsible one of these days if I find a job here pretty soon and get huddle and get some stuff that we can do this again maybe in the spring and summer and maybe talk some real football.
Hey, man, you already know. You just got to say the word, Coach. Absolutely. And definitely appreciate you coming on, man. Once again, I knew it was going to be, tremendous stuff on there, some really good coaching points and obviously from having that experience, man, and a lot of it does come from the experience. So there was some stuff on there that I've done and have, and have done. And then there was other stuff that I was like, okay, this is really valuable for me. So I can go forward with it. So I definitely appreciate that. If any coaches do have any questions, definitely drop it in the chat. And obviously there's Coach's contact information if you guys want to follow up with him at a later time. Coach, I know for me personally, you and I are gonna have to talk sometime off this, and just in regards to some stuff I have some questions for. So,
Hey, hit me up. And that goes for anybody, especially like right now, man. I've got 4 kids at home, so man, it gives me a chance to tell my wife, hey, I've got to do an online clinic or something like that. Man, it gives me a break from giving somebody a bath or putting them to bed or something like that.
there you go. There you go. Now, Coach, definitely appreciate it, man. Awesome stuff. Awesome clinic. And absolutely, I will take you up on that offer when you get that huddle back running, man. You just say the word, and you already know. You just pick the topic, and we'll rock and roll.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Who knows? It might be wing T. My next job, I might become a wing T guy. Coach Gaylor was a wing T quarterback back in high school, and he told me he could hand off using no hands. So I'm going to have him come teach my quarterbacks how to do it.
Shoot, and this whole time I've been having them clinic all the coaches on defensive stuff. I should have been having them clinic us on that.
Yeah, that's the thing about the defensive guys. They're kind of jealous of us because, when things are going bad offensively, hey, you go 3 plays and throw the ball in the dirt, you can yell punt, man. When you're a defensive guy, that's why they're so angry all the time. There ain't no punt, man. The only thing that stops the other team is that you're banned. So, running through the end zone. So that's why those defensive guys are so angry. So we got to give them a hard time anytime we can.
I'm gonna have to hit him up about that the no hand handoff though. I
definitely do it. You need to get him on here, and he'll show you. He showed me in the office a few times. It's pretty crazy.
Coach, once again, man, appreciate your time, brother. And obviously for all the coaches who came in and checked you out, man, definitely shout out to you guys for spending time with us. So reach out to Coach, like you said, I mean, and I say this a lot, Coach, where, the coaches who come on here to present, man, they're not just putting these as just a slide, you know what I mean? They want you to reach out. They want to talk some ball. So absolutely take advantage of that. And as Coach alluded to in one of his slides, man, you want to have those guys in your corner. You want to have those guys that you either bounce ideas off of, or if it's on the opposing side of the ball. Either way, it's definitely great to have these resources. It'll absolutely benefit you tremendously. So, yeah, Coach. Once this is Coach Merritt, once this is done, it'll download, and then I'll put it in the drive, and I'll tweet out about it that it's on the drive. So just keep an eye.
Yeah, and if anybody, like some of those forms, they were just screenshots in there. If you guys want those forms, I mean, I'll email whatever you guys want out. Like I said, sometimes I'll take like kids' names out of them and stuff like that. I just don't want that out there. But man, if there's any forms or anything like that I can email you guys out, I mean, I'd love to help, because like I said, I know what it's like, man. You get all these ideas, and it's a lot easier to piggyback off somebody else's work and change some stuff around your colors and stuff like that than it is to go and recreate a whole form. And so however I can help out, guys, I'd love to help out.
Appreciate that, Coach. We'll wrap this one up. Once again, thank